How do you become successful? Well, take ownership of what's going on in your world and then implement the 4 laws of combat leadership. That's how you become successful. Cover, move, simple, prioritize and execute, decentralized command. That's what you need to do. Those are the methodologies for achieving success. That's what we utilized on the battlefield. That's how we win at life, with our family, with our health, with our finances. It's those fundamental principles. So cover and move, which is teamwork, working together, building a team, whether it's a team at work, whether it's your family, whether it's a group of people that you pursue fitness goals with. Cover and move is about building a team and supporting each other. Keeping things simple, what's our mission? And what's the simplest course of action to execute that mission? And then prioritize and execute, which means you can't do too many things at once. Don't be ADHD trying to do 58 different things at the same time. It won't work. You need to focus your efforts. And then finally, decentralized command, which means everybody leads. You've got to come up with what your game plan is and you've got to let people execute. And sometimes you might be thinking, well, Jocko's talking about a business. No, I'm talking about getting your kids to make their own peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's decentralized command. And make sure that everybody on the team understands why they're doing what they're doing. And then make sure that everyone on the team understands why we are doing what we are doing.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because I need it. I need it for me because I don't wake up every day and say, yes, let's go conquer the world. No, I wake up and I need that external motivation to match my internal motivation. When I see somebody who's doing amazing things, it makes me just want to play a bigger game. And so I hope that today's video makes you want to play a bigger game too, because your message matters, and let's get it out to the world. So today let's learn from one of the best, Jocko Willink, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2 is take ownership.
If you're working for me and you don't show up on time, or you're not professional when you're conducting your briefs, I need to say something to you. And I need to take ownership of the fact that I haven't made it clear that, hey, you need to show up on time, and hey, you need to be more professional, and hey, you need to wear the right uniform or dress the part. I need to take ownership of that. And maybe if I do, and I talk to you and we discuss why it's important, and you say, oh yeah, I really didn't think about that, and you change your ways and you get on board and you start showing up on time, and you start acting more professional, it's great. We solve the problem. There's also a chance that you're late again, or you show up, with booze on your breath or whatever, and we're meeting with a client and I say, hey, Chris, you can't do this. Look, I'm serious. You cannot act this way. This reflects bad on all of us. And maybe and I might even say, listen, if you keep this up, you're not even going to be working here anymore. I'm going to have to get rid of you. You say, no, I love working with you. It's going to be great. I won't do it again. And maybe that solves your problem. Or maybe you're late again, or you continue to act unprofessionally, and then I'm going to get rid of you. I'm going to say, hey, Chris, look, I talked to you. I tried to explain this to you. And at a certain point, this job isn't for you. So that can happen. And I have to take ownership of the fact that you are actually not capable of doing this job that I've asked you. So that's fine. Same thing can happen in a relationship, right? Look, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're bickering about where we're going to go for dinner, or you came home late from work and all you do is, well, I've been working all day. You should respect the fact that I've been working all day. Like that's actually on you. That's actually on you. And you can make adjustments to that. Now, can you get to a point in a relationship where the other person is not a good fit for you? And at some point you say, you know what? I've made these adjustments. I've come home, on time. I've texted you when I was going to be late. And these other things are coming up. And you say, you know what? I don't think this is working. And I don't think this is a good relationship. So at a certain point, you say, okay, I've made the adjustments that I can make, and I have to take ownership of the fact that we're not a good match. So yeah, there's plenty of times where taking ownership means actually solving the problem, not continuing to pour the problem down your neck every night, because that's not very helpful to anybody. So yes, at a certain point, you have to make adjustments and you have to move forward.
Rule number 3 is develop self-discipline.
What does a disciplined life look like?
Doing what you're supposed to do.
What's the philosophy of the 4 o'clock? What role does that play in a disciplined life for you?
Okay, from that perspective, what role it plays is getting a jump on the day. And when you wake up early and you get a jump on the day and you've got your workout done and you've got a little bit of work done,
yeah.
By the time normal people are getting up, that's a win. That's a psychological win. And it's not just a psychological win. It's an actual win. It's an actual win. So that feels great. It doesn't feel great maybe when your alarm clock goes off, but by 8 o'clock in the morning and you've already accomplished some of the major tasks that you have, some of the most painful tasks that you have for the day, you're off to a great start and it's going to feel great.
Let's break this down then. What does then the rest of the day look like? What is the perfect, productive, disciplined day in the life of Jocko Willink look like?
Wake up, work out.
Wake up when?
4:30.
Work out when?
5 to 6 or 7.
No eating.
No.
And then what does the workout look like?
Depends on the day.
What's the perfect? We're talking about body weight, lifting, cardio, heavy bag, jiu-jitsu. What?
Okay, yeah, when I say workout, I mean no jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu comes later in the day.
So this is just you alone?
This is me alone working out. Yep. And I'm going to be doing a wide variety of things.
Rule number 4 is exercise.
Are there certain forms of exercise like weightlifting versus cardio that you find give you an especially big boost in what we're calling energy? And here, this could be cognitive energy, it could be physical energy, but a readiness for the next thing.
Yeah, first I got to back you up on this. I love backing up your science. So do you ever ruck march, like put on a heavy weight and ruck?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, Peter Attia got me into this. He got me into doing a long Sunday, instead of a long Sunday run, throwing on a lightweight vest or a ruck and going out for like 3 hours. And the first 20 minutes, I find I always want to go faster and get it over with. But then I've learned that the real pain in it sets in around an hour. And then the beauty sets in around 90 minutes where you're like, I could do this all day, all night, and I never want to stop.
See, that's when you were describing how these chemicals get released, and once you're in that automatic mode, because in the SEAL teams, you're doing maritime operations for a month, and then you're going to do some kill house shooting, and so you're not carrying a bunch of weight, and then you go out to the desert, and now you're putting on 80 pounds and you're going on like day one and you get out there, you're going on an 80-pound ruck march. And the first freaking 17 minutes, the first 23 minutes just suck. They just suck. And what was beautiful was by the time I was, 23, 24 years old, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to suck for 17 minutes. And then I'm going to be a robot and it doesn't matter anymore. And I can just keep going forever. So it sounds like what you're saying is what I experienced basically my whole adult life. There's going to be a little break-in period mentally where you think this totally sucks. And then you just can keep going for a really, really long time. And it's not that big of a deal. To your question of, is there any form of exercise that gives me that energy boost? I would have to say like the high intensity sort of anaerobic blast, whether it's on the bike or on the rower or, swinging a kettlebell hard, something like that lasts 10, 15 minutes. That's a really good way to, peak my mentality for the day.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5 is work hard.
I'm interested in what the price is that you have to pay in order to sort of be Jocko Willink on a daily basis.
Work, a lot of work. When you're watching TV or you're, looking at Instagram or you're, going out for dinner on a date and you go to a movie, I'm not doing that. I'm reading a book. I'm getting ready for a podcast. I'm writing something. I'm preparing for something. I'm talking to a client. I'm designing something. I'm thinking about a new supplement. Like it's just kind of all the time. And so a guy asked me the other day, are you working more now than you were when you were in the SEAL teams? And the answer is 100%. Yes, I'm working harder now. You know, I should say I'm working more, because I'm working more time. No weekends. No weekends, no evenings really. Luckily for me, I like what I do.
Rule number 6 is be a great leader.
What makes a great man? Let's start at the individual. What makes a great man? What makes a great woman? What makes a great human being?
Somebody that puts others above themselves.
What makes a great leader of humans?
What elements does it take to make a good leader?
Yes.
So you're right that different people have different personalities, different tendencies, different levels of ego. And the way that I try and explain this is like a video game. And I'm not even a video game player, but I've seen this before, where video game characters have various skills, various strengths and weaknesses. So maybe they're strong, but they're dumb, or maybe they're strong and smart, but they're slow. They just give them these ratings. And so that's what human beings are. And that's the way leaders are. And you can have different leaders with different characteristics. And depending on how all those characteristics match up, you can have somebody that is very introverted, but they're still a very good leader, because when they do communicate, they do it in a clear, simple manner that everyone understands. So even though they're a little bit introverted, people still respect them and listen to them because they communicate in a clear way. You could have somebody that's extremely charismatic, and everyone looks to them, but they're slow in making decisions. And so now we've got someone that can't really make decisions when decisions need to get made. So even though they're charismatic, they're still not a good leader. So depending on the human being that we're talking about, and you just mentioned earlier that human beings are, you know, more complex than anything and do a better job at just about everything than a robot. So that's the same thing with leadership. You've got all these different characteristics, and you match them or mix them together. And depending on where the ratings come out, depending on how that thing does in the end.
Rule number 7 is have a contingency plan.
I love your story when you were talking about your life on your TED Talk, when you took responsibility for your position in front of your peers, in front of your commanding officers.
The idea is extreme ownership. That is taking ownership of everything that's going on in your world. And it's a challenge. And it hurts,
Yes, it
your
is.
ego. You know, every time something goes wrong.
Yep.
When you're a leader of a team, like if you're a pastor and
Yeah.
something goes wrong in your church, it's really easy to look around and say, well, the congregation
That's right.
should have done this.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
The market's going in this direction.
Oh, I'm great at doing that.
Right. The weather
Yes.
didn't, go the way we wanted it to go because you planned the picnic
Yep.
and the weather came in, and you say, hey, that's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault in the weather.
Yeah.
But the reality is you should have had some kind of a contingency plan.
That's right.
Same thing with a relationship. I'm thinking, when I get home from work, hey, I just want to sit down on the couch
Yeah.
because I'm tired. Well, what if my wife wants to talk to me? And I could say, well, she needs to understand me. Well, guess what? She's been dealing with the kids all day. She's been, jumping up and down, driving around, doing the carpool thing. She wants to talk to a grown person. So I can make those adjustments. I can do that. That's on me, not on my wife. It's not her problem. That's my problem.
Rule number 8 is shift your thinking.
When people ask me this question, hey, is it possible to take too much ownership? The answer is yes. And that is, if I'm in charge and you're working for me and I take so much ownership over a mission or over a project that you don't feel like you have any input at all, then I've taken too much ownership. As far as an individual person, there's going to be things in your life that you don't have control over. And, one of the early questions that I got asked about this, like for instance, someone gets a terrible disease and, or their kids gets a terrible disease, a random disease that's through no fault of anyone, the kid gets sick or the person gets sick. And no, there's nothing you can do about that. What you can take ownership, though, is how you respond to that situation. And so that's what you have to do. There's things that you can control. There's things you can't control. Now, I will tell you that human beings can control a lot more than they think they can. And oftentimes it's pretty easy just to say, oh, that's not me. That's not on me. And I think that's the whole genesis of the idea of extreme ownership is most of the time, or much of the time, people say that's not my fault. There's nothing I can do about that. And more often than people think, there is something you can do about it. And it is your fault.
Rule number 9 is learn to balance.
As you said, when we move toward action and we complete something, the oil in that candle starts to get replenished and the flame burns hotter.
What you're talking about, and I'm very interested in this now, and I don't know if this has already been measured or not, but what essentially we're talking about is a confidence level, right? So if I go out and win, I feel good about it. And let's say I'm doing a jiu-jitsu tournament, and the first match I go out there and I submit the guy in 30, take him down, submit him in 30 seconds. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like confident, right? So what does that mean? My dopamine is up because I got that victory. My testosterone is up because I got that victory. My confidence is up because I got that victory. Same thing, other direction. If I go out first match and I lose to somebody, my dopamine goes down, that chemical thing goes down, my confidence goes down. And what I have to do is I have to learn how to maintain a level of confidence, because if I win that first match, win the second match, I'm going to kill this next guy, and I go out and I'm sloppy and I don't care. That's when I get caught. If I lack confidence, I go out there and there's nothing I'm able to do to beat this guy. This is going to be horrible. Of course, I'm going to get smashed. So it's a similar thing that we're talking about. I just wonder how much, if you start measuring, because they say, hey, if you win, your testosterone goes up, right? And then if you win more, your testosterone goes up high, your dopamine goes up high, your confidence is going up. But you can get to a point where your confidence is too high, and now you're getting sloppy, and now you don't care. And you mentioned cocaine. You see like videos of people that are all coked up, and hey, I can do this. They think they can do everything. They're
possibility.
Overconfident, right?
Yep.
They're they think they can kick your ass. I'll fight. That's like too much dopamine, too much ego, too much confidence. The other side of the spectrum is someone that's on some kind of downer drug, and they don't feel like they can do anything. They're lethargic, their confidence is low, and they're just depressed. So there's an interesting tie-in between dopamine, ego, confidence, and probably testosterone that you get from winning and from losing. And once again, as a leader, from a leadership perspective, you can't get wrapped up in that. You can't get wrapped up in that. You have to detach from it. You have to be able to take a step back. And then if you're good, even as a competitor, you'll say, oh yeah, that last match was easy, but I need to prepare for the next match. I can't bring overconfidence. Look, I don't want a lack of confidence. It's a balance, right? It's that flame on the oil burning lamp that you're talking about. That you want that steady flame. You don't want too much because it's going to burn out of control. You don't want too little, the flame will go out.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is start taking action.
I guarantee that there are people on this call that have been sitting on an idea for more than a decade. I guarantee it. Sitting on a dream for over 10 years. And that's horrible. That's where dreams die. That's where ideas die. That's where projects die. So, how do you go about overcoming this? How do you actually go about overcoming this? And what you do is you take action. And listen, the action doesn't need to be huge. You probably heard me say this, I write 1,000 words a day. When I got to write a book, I write 1,000 words a day. I don't care if I write 7 words. In an hour, I write 7 words. Okay, at least I tried. And the next day, I'll write more. But to do nothing, to write 0 words, the difference between 0 words and 7 words is infinite. So you have to take some kind of action. This is what's cool. Right now we're running the Def Reset. And one of the things on the Def Reset is to write down the top 3 things you need to do. And then you go do those 3 things. That's why we have that in there. You know, I had this conversation with Jordan Peterson, like, imagine if you do what you're supposed, imagine if you wrote down the 3 things you need to do tomorrow, and then tomorrow you woke up and you did them. And then imagine if you did that for a week, and then imagine if you did that for a year, and then imagine if you did that for 5 years. Where would you be in life? Totally different place. But that hardest step is that first step, to break the gravitational pull. break the gravitational pull of stagnation. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take action. Now, this is also important. Equally important is that when you execute, you have to pay attention to the feedback loop. You have to pay attention. When you take action, you have to pay attention to the feedback that you then get. Is the action that you took, is it having the desired effect that you want? And this seems so obvious. It seems so obvious to say, okay, I took this action, I'm getting positive feedback, I should do it more. That's great. Sometimes we take action, we don't get the feedback that we want. We realize maybe we're not on the right path. And instead of adjusting, we keep trying the same plan, we keep trying the same maneuver, we keep trying the same tactic, even though it's not working. And by the way, that's something that causes a lack of execution. Because people think when they execute that whatever they do is written in stone. And it's not. Nothing's written in stone. Well, just about nothing is written in stone. If you're flexible, if you know you can change course, if you know you can adjust direction, if you know you can adapt to a shifting marketplace or a new battlefield scenario, if you go in with an open mind and you know you can change your mind and make adjustments, then that will make it easier for you to execute. And that's why we talk about utilizing the iterative decision-making process, making small decisions, taking small actions, execute those actions swiftly, and then adjust rapidly and repeat.
How do you avoid feeling discouraged when you realize how much of your life you wasted when you're not getting after it? Do you ever worry that you won't achieve your full potential because you wasted time?
As far as discouragement goes from not having gotten on the path earlier, do I feel that way? Would I feel that way? Negative. Don't. No. Okay, you were a little late getting in the game. But I'll tell you what, 26 years old, is that what we're talking about? 26? Yeah, at 26 years old, you're youngin'.
Very much.
You're youngin'. But I'll tell you what, even if you were 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, doesn't matter. You're in the game now, and that's what counts. And all those quote unquote wasted years, they weren't wasted, right? They're not wasted because you learned. And specifically, what did he learn about? Learned about what it's like to be out of shape, learned about what it's like to be overweight, learned about what it's like to be weak. And the knowledge that you learned about those things is fuel to make sure that it never happens again.
The guy says to me, hey, we failed this project. And I said, oh, why did we fail that project? Oh, because of Bill, the frontline manager. Oh, okay, who's in charge of Bill? It's Mike. Oh, okay, who's in charge of Mike? Fred. Who's in charge of Fred?
The leader, the CEO, yeah.
I am. Yeah, that's right. You're in charge of Fred. So that means you need to make sure that your intent is felt all the way down through the chain of command.
How do we do that?
That's leadership. This is why I have a consulting business, because this is what you have to do. Yeah. Because the larger a company gets, look, when I'm in charge of 8 people,
it's easier.
Everybody knows what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. I see them every day. I can sit in one room and talk to them all face to face. On the battlefield, you're in charge of a fire team. A fire team has 4 or 5 people in it. Even in combat, you can control 4 or 5 people. 8 people, you actually can't control anymore. In a firefight, you can't control 8 people. That's why the Army, the Marine Corps, around the whole world, it's like 4 or 5 people in a fire team. That's what the base unit is. Wow. In the corporate world, you can handle a little bit more than that because there's no explosions happening, there's no gunfire. Yeah. So you can control 8 people, 10 people, something like that. That's kind of what the normal corporate structure breaks out as. But the bigger you get, the more you have to rely on those subordinate leaders to spread the word, to understand what the mission is, to understand what the end state is, to understand why they're doing what they're doing. That's what you have to do as a leader.
When you got somebody that's weak or ineffective leader or a poor leader, the answer is always the same. What you do is you lead. You lead yourself. And I hope people that listen to the podcast on the regular, you all knew what I was going to say there. You all know that when someone is not leading you, then you lead them. You pick up the slack for the weakness. My leader doesn't want to come up with a plan? Cool, I will. My leader doesn't want to give a brief? That's fine, I will. My leader doesn't want to mentor the younger troops? That's okay, I will do it. Leader doesn't want to take the blame when something goes wrong? That's fine with me. I'm going to take the blame. And you think about that one can be tricky because you think, well, I'm going to look bad in front of the more senior boss. Now think about it from the senior boss's position. If you work for me, Echo, and the boss comes in and the mission was a failure, and I'm the guy that's in charge, and I say, sorry, boss, we failed. It was Echo's fault. And Echo goes, hey, sir, it was my fault. Here's what happened. Here's the mistakes I made, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it next time. Who do you respect more?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm looking to promote you.
Yep.
I actually want to promote you, and I want to fire myself for being a guy that's passing the buck and passing the responsibility and not taking ownership of anything. So imagine what that looks like. Before you get all intimidated by taking the blame for something and think you're going to look bad and think you're going to get fired, think about what it looks like from the senior perspective. And you actually have to imagine what it will look like underneath you. You have to see it from your perspective, because it's even when you think about their perspective, you still can be in fear of it. You think, oh, I'm the guy that's taking the blame. I'm the one that's going to get fired. No.
If my team, and I mentioned that in the book, it's like, oh, I want to give you hard criticism. How do I give you hard criticism? The first thing I have to do is make sure that you understand I care about you, which is not easy to do, and it's not always obvious. But if you know that more than anything else, what I want is for you to be successful, when I say, hey Tom, I'm looking at the outcome of the last project, and you were like 3 weeks past the time, I think there's some things that we could do to kind of make you a little bit more efficient in leading these things. If you know that my number one thing is that I care about you, you're gonna be all ears. To an extent. Because guess what percentage of the world is truly open for criticism?
What's the number?
Oh, it's tiny. There's so few people that are truly open to criticism. I always use this example, like if I went and talked to your company and got done and was like, hey Tom, it's great talking to your company. You got any feedback for me? And you said, well, yeah, I think you could have spent a little more time talking about extreme ownership. It would have been a little bit better for my crew. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, really? Oh, you think? No, that's what we think. Even though I actually asked for feedback, I'm getting mad. My ego's perking up. So most of the time, people don't want to get that direct feedback. And in fact, sometimes when I hear people say, I'm just going to get direct with this person. I'm just going to let them know exactly what they're screwing up. Almost always, that's a bad idea. Now, and there's some people that sit there and they say, well, that's weak or whatever, but it's not, because I'm going to get the message to you. I'm just going to deliver it in a way that you accept it more, that your mind is open to it. That's what I'm trying to do as a leader, as a friend, as someone that cares about you. Hey, look, I need to get this information to you. Now, this will escalate over time. And if I've tried, if I said, hey, Tom, I think we could do this better, and you still fail. And I say, hey, Tom, maybe you should try this, and you still fail. And then I say, hey, Tom, I think this is the way you should go, and you still fail. And then I'm going to get to a point where I'm saying, listen, Tom, this isn't working. The way you are doing this is not working. And I told you this, and I told you that, and I told you the other thing. And what I'm trying to say is that you need to change this part of your game. It is hurting you. So sometimes it gets there where I've totally exhausted every conversation that I can think of. You know how often I escalated to that point in my career, in my life? Like almost never. Almost never do you get someone that is so thick-headed that they're not going to listen to you. And when they are, it's because they have a giant ego. It's because their ego, they can't see the fact that, oh, I'm making some real bad mistakes. And by the way, when you've delivered them that final message of like, hey, here's exactly what you're screwing up, what they say is, no, you just don't know what it's like in my shoes. And that's when you can't help them.
Everyone has certain innate capabilities, right? And some of them may be stronger than others. And some capabilities that you have tend to make you a better leader. And there's a bunch of them. right? So, some people are naturally articulate. Right? There's some people that have a natural level of confidence. Those are really good things to have if you're a leader. Some people can look at complex problems and they can kind of simplify those complex problems. And those are very good skills for a leader to have, to be articulate, to be confident, to be able to simplify things. Those are great skills for a leader to have. And different people have different levels of those skills. So I'm sure you've known people in your life that weren't very articulate. So they didn't really get that skill. Or some people that lack confidence, and they can be super smart. They can even be articulate, but they lack confidence. There's some people, being able to simplify is a good skill to have, but usually people remember, instead of people that were able to simplify things well, a lot of times instead people remember individuals that really made things complicated. You ever work with somebody that takes something and just makes them complicated? So
you're like, shut up, can we just do it?
Yes. So those are different skill levels that a human being will have. And you got born with what you got born with. And maybe it got nurtured a little bit along the way. It improved a little bit. And so you can take those skills, and if you're not very articulate, you can read and you can speak and you can write and you can become more articulate. If you're not very confident, as you get experience and as you go through things in life, your confidence can increase. And as you continue as a leader to look at complex problems, you can get better at solving those problems and simplifying them. So there's ways to improve your leadership capability. And that's what I do for a living, is work with companies and work with leaders to improve their leadership capability. And that can happen pretty much across the board. Now, the reason there's a caveat to that is one of the most important characteristics for a leader to have is humility. Because if you lack humility, well, you don't think you need to be any more articulate because, you're already good enough. And
you don't need team members.
You don't even need anyone to give you any input because you already know everything. So the person that lacks humility is not going to become any better of a leader.
I don't spend a lot of time with regret.
That's good.
Because there's not much that you can do about it.
Yeah.
It's happened.
Something, yeah.
So what the way I look at regret is, what did I learn from it? What did I learn from whatever thing I'm looking at that I know I could have done a better job, could have done different? Sure, there's a million things like that, but I don't sit there and think about them all day long. What I think is like, hey, here's the lessons that I learned from them. I won't make those mistakes again and move forward. One of my answers for people when they say, hey, how can I get better at detaching and controlling my emotions? I tell them to start training jiu-jitsu. Because you're gonna get tapped out in jiu-jitsu. Your ego is gonna get smacked around so hard, you're gonna lose your mind. And the madder you get, the more aggressive you are, the more you're gonna get beat down and the worse it's gonna be. So you have to learn to control your emotions. No doubt about it. And then what you have to do is you have to start practicing it all the time. You have to start paying attention to the red flags that go up when I start raising my voice at you. I go, oh, that's your emotion, get mad. And for me, like the minute I feel some sort of anger, some sort of jealousy, some sort of frustration, most of the time I go, oh, you're getting mad, that's your ego. You're getting emotional about this. Take a step back and listen to what the other person's saying. Take a step back and try and see it from their perspective. Take a step back and try and understand what they're trying to say. Because sometimes, if you're not a very articulate person, you're just making me mad. It's only because I don't understand what you're trying to say. Take a step back. Let's talk through it. So pay attention to, I always talk about when you're sending an email to someone and you're typing like this, don't send that email. That's not a good email to send. That's an emotional email. Wait, write it out, fine, and then save it and read it later and you'll realize, oh yeah, I was really mad about something or I was really frustrated. So how do you do it? You practice it. You pay attention to your emotions and you get control over them. Have kids. If you have kids, you'll have to learn to get control of your emotions.
In the Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, the section Fear reads, how do you overcome fear of failure? Step, go. But a previous entry reads, I don't want you to overcome fear of failure. I want you to be afraid of failure. Mind elaborating?
Yeah, clearly there's a dichotomy here. I know it's my favorite word, apparently, according to Dean Lister.
Yes, I agree.
There is a dichotomy here because fear is something good that you should take advantage of. So it's kind of good to be afraid because it keeps you on edge. It keeps you from slacking. It keeps you preparing as much as you possibly can, and all that stuff is good. But at the same time, yes, if you go too far to the other end of the spectrum, fear gets a hold of you and you can't overcome it. So you freeze or you cower or you run away, and none of those are good reactions. So what I obviously failed to communicate well in the book, Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual, is the dichotomy between the spectrum of fear that you can have. So if you have no fear whatsoever, no fear, well, guess what? You get cocky, you can get arrogant. If you have too much fear, you can't even get out of the gate. You just freeze, you hesitate. So like all dichotomies, you got to balance those two. And the way you balance those two is to try and do things that make you feel fear, right? Try and do things that make you feel fear. So that way you get used to it, you can overcome it, you can deal with it, you can utilize it. And if you have a fighter, you ever hear UFC fighters that are like, I'm afraid every time I get in the ring, right?
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, pretty much everybody. I'm afraid because you're afraid you're going to get knocked out, you're afraid this, you're afraid that, you're afraid you're going to lose in front of all my family and friends and all that. So everyone's afraid. So what does that fear do? It drives you to train harder. It drives you to prepare. It drives you to keep your hands up and your chin down when you're in the cage. So yeah, there's a healthy level of fear. It can also get the best of you. So keep it balanced.
Manipulation obviously has a bad connotation. Leadership has a good connotation. What's the difference between the two? Because guess what? If I'm manipulating you, I'm trying to get you to do something. If I'm leading you, I'm trying to get you to do something. And many of the tools are very similar. So what's the difference between me leading you and me manipulating you? It's very easy for me to answer that question. If I'm manipulating you, I'm trying to get you to do something that's going to benefit me. If I'm leading, I'm trying to get you to do something that's going to benefit you, it's going to benefit the team, and it's going to benefit the mission. So for me, those are too easy. Those are too easy. It's real obvious. And by the way, if I'm a manipulator, I can get away with that for a little while, but eventually you're going to look at me for what I am. You're going to see that the maneuvers I'm making, the tools I'm using, I'm utilizing those tools for my own benefit. And as soon as you see that, you won't fully support me. You won't. The same goes for when I'm trying to make you do something good for yourself and for the team. You're going to see that too. And you're going to say, he actually cares about me. That's what he's doing this for. And when you know I care about you, you'll do anything for me.
Ego drives you. Absolutely. It makes you want to win. It makes you want to perform well. It makes you proud of your achievements. It makes you want to be number one. And those are all good things. And I fully have those myself. I mean, my ego will keep me up at night trying to win at some ridiculously meaningless thing in the world. Especially when I was younger. It was kind of stupid. But the ego can also get you in trouble really, really quickly. For instance, I mean, your ego can make you sabotage your coworker that's on the same team as you so that you can outshine them, right? That's ego. You can vote down a plan, a better plan, because that plan isn't yours. That's your ego. You can chase some material items, something that you don't really need. Maybe in some cases, it might even be something that you don't actually even want. And it's just fueling your ego, which is a really bizarre thing to see. It can make you step on your subordinates, right? It can make you undercut your peers because that ego flares up. Your ego can make you dig in on some stupid ideas that you've had. Those are the kind of things that ego do, and all those things are negative. So that's pretty clear to me where ego starts going sideways. And I would say, even though like my ego always fueled me to want to win, but I never was that out of control where I was like screwing people over because I wanted to win. No, I wouldn't do that. That wasn't part of my personality. I'm not that. Plus, I was never really naturally good at much. So it wasn't like I was going to win. The only way I could beat people and things was by outworking them.
Yeah.
Other than that, it would be hard for me. Well, when a human being looks at another human being that is willing to sacrifice, and in that case, willing to sacrifice everything, that is, when we see that as people, when you see someone that's willing to sacrifice, and I was lucky enough to work with guys and see guys sacrifice their lives for the cause of freedom. When you see that level of sacrifice and you see someone willing to make that sacrifice, it absolutely reassures you that you're on the right path and you're doing the right thing. I was in Ramadi, my last deployment to Iraq, and my wife asked me to send a picture of where I slept at night. Because my kids, he said, oh, the kids want to see where you're sleeping. We were in an old regime kind of palace on the wall. Not quite a palace, but a mansion. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's all now boarded up and there's sandbags in the windows and there are machine gun nests on it and the whole 9 yards. But that's where we were living, you know? And I had a little bedroom in there with a plywood bed that, you know, we'd built, and there was some kind of a crappy mattress on it.
A little cushion, yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I slept. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to take a picture of it so I could send it to my wife on an email. And when I took the picture, I looked at it and I realized that there was something wrong with the picture. So I opened up a drawer, pulled out a little file, a little folder, took some pictures of my wife and kids and put them up around the bed.
Wow.
And then I took a picture of it. And then I took all those things back down, I put them back in the folder, I put them back in the drawer. Because the last thing I needed to be thinking about while I was away on deployment was thinking about my wife and kids.
Wow.
What I needed to be thinking about was the guys that were with me, that were counting on me to make the right decisions. And so I didn't want to be thinking about my wife and kids. So I compartmentalized them. I would talk to my wife maybe once a week, call her, check in. I would tell her everything's great, everything's fine. And she would tell me the same thing, you know, doesn't matter what was going on at home as far as she was
can't be worrying about her.
She didn't want me worrying about her or the kids. So as far as I knew, everything was good. And as far as she knew, everything was good. And that was what seemed to work well.
Wow. Did they teach you that? Or is that what a lot of SEALs did? Or is that just kind of something I
think some, and not just SEALs, but I think most human beings will figure that that's probably the best thing to do, is focus on your job at hand and put those thoughts and feelings aside. But I'll tell you what, you know, you talked about being scared, and I said, you know, for me being scared of one of my guys getting hurt, the last thing in the world I wanted to be thinking about while I was on deployment was my wife and kids at home, and would I ever see them again and any of that. I'm not thinking about that. That's not happening.
Because then you're making the wrong moves.
Yeah, because then what you're doing is you're hesitating. And if you're hesitating,
that's when you get hurt.
You're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get killed. From my perspective, when people ask me all the time, I lack discipline, how can I get discipline in my life? And no one wants to hear this answer. No one wants to hear it.
Just do it.
One of the first steps you can take to impose discipline in your life is to wake up early in the morning. Because let's face it, when the alarm goes off, you got your head on that soft pillow. It's all nice and cozy and warm in there. You do not feel like getting up. And so
he doesn't even have a snooze alarm. He doesn't ever hit the snooze alarm.
Yep. You do? And you should not. You should not. That snooze alarm is...
That's insane.
I call that snooze alarm the dream killer. Like when you press that snooze button, you're killing your dreams. So don't touch the snooze button. Now
some would say that might be a little extreme.
No, where people get worried and people freak out is sleep is healthy. Sleep is good for you. I know that. I get it. And people say, you're telling people not to sleep. No, I'm not telling people not to sleep.
You do 6 hours every night, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I usually go to bed around 10:30, 11, and I wake up at 4:30. So I get 5.5 to 6 hours almost every night, you know? And sometimes I tell people, I think sleeping is good. I do it almost every single day. So, but people will freak out and say, you're telling people to be unhealthy. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not, you know, if you need, different people have different genetic needs for sleep. I'm one of those people that doesn't need much. Of my 4 kids, my oldest daughter needs even less sleep than I do. My middle daughter sleeps more like my wife. My son's somewhere in the middle, which, by the way, that means my middle daughter, she gets out of bed when you get her out of bed in the morning. She likes to sleep. So I'm not telling people, hey, don't sleep, but I am saying put yourself on a schedule. And you ask why I don't sleep in. If I sleep in on a Saturday until 6 o'clock, that night I'm going to have more energy. And instead of going to bed at 10:30 or 11, I'm going to stay up until midnight because I got a little bit of extra sleep. Well, now that next day I'm going to sleep in a little bit more. Now all of a sudden Sunday I'm sleeping in until 7 o'clock. Now, Sunday night, I can't go to bed until 1 o'clock in the morning, and you see where I'm going with this. I go into Monday with a lack of sleep because I couldn't fall asleep. So the most important thing is set a good wake-up time that works for you, where you get enough sleep, and then wake up that time every day if you can.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome. For 10 more amazing rules from David Goggins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
She doesn't know how much she taught me because she wasn't much in the teaching mode. My dad took her soul. But what I did as a young kid is I observed everybody. I wasn't really smart in the books, but I was real smart when it came to life.